The story you are about to hear isn't found in textbooks, military speeches, or official war documentaries. This is the side of the Afghanistan War that was never meant to be highlighted, the quiet struggle of the forgotten U.S. soldiers of 2001, the men who stepped into a land of mountains, dust, broken governments, and uncertain loyalties long before the rest of the world understood what the war would become. And the most haunting question remains, what really happened to them when the world was in watching? Because behind every headline of victory, behind every satellite image of bombings, behind every political promise, there were real soldiers, deployed early, quietly, and with missions no one fully understood. And today, we uncover their reality piece by piece. Imagine being among the very first Americans dropped into Afghanistan in 2001. No established bases, no large-scale ground operations, no clear maps, no stable allies. Just a few dozen men scattered across unfamiliar mountain ranges, trying to navigate tribal politics, Taliban remnants, Al-Qaeda hideouts, and the massive pressure of preventing another attack on American soil. These soldiers were not the ones who appeared on magazine covers or returned home to fanfare. And yet, understanding what they went through is the only way to understand how the war truly started and why it unfolded the way it did. Some of these early soldiers weren't infantry at all. Their missions were often extremely vague. Link up with local militias, identify Taliban holdouts, track unexplained movement in the mountains. Instructions that sounded simple in briefing rooms turned into life-or-death challenges once they faced actual terrain. Maps were often decades old. Villages didn't always match coordinates. Locals spoke in dialects rarely documented, and trust. That was the most unpredictable part. One handshake might save your life, and another could set up an ambush. In many parts of rural Afghanistan, the Taliban hadn't disappeared. They had simply blended into daily life, sometimes as farmers, sometimes as shopkeepers, sometimes as men offering tea and information that was only half true. And yet, these soldiers pushed through, forming bonds with local communities, relying on instincts, learning the land, and adapting to a war that was still defining itself. They saw the Afghan landscape not just as a battlefield, but as a living map, one shaped by centuries of tribal relationships, historic rivalries, and geographic isolation. And they realized what many decision-makers failed to consider. Nothing in Afghanistan could be changed quickly. One of the biggest challenges faced by these forgotten soldiers was the lack of infrastructure. No proper bases meant no reliable supply lines. Communication systems cut out at the worst possible moments. Sometimes a team would go days without updates from higher command, left to make decisions on the ground based on instinct and immediate threat, not long-term strategy. not knowing if they'd be remembered for what they endured or simply lost in the shadows of a long war. They identified strongholds that later shaped entire strategic operations. They protected villages that were being threatened at night. They gathered intelligence on Al-Qaeda fighters trying to slip across borders. Their insights about tribal loyalties, corruption issues, and the challenges of sustainable reconstruction were dismissed as too slow, too local, or not aligned with the bigger picture. And when policies failed years later, when billions were lost, when strategies collapsed, and when Afghanistan fell again in 2021, the world asked, how did this happen? The truth is that many early soldiers knew, even in 2001, that Afghanistan required patience, respect for local structures, and deep cultural understanding, not rapid political deadlines. Their struggle wasn't just with the Taliban, it was with time, distance, and an environment where every decision carried layers of cultural meaning. These soldiers learned quickly that Afghanistan wasn't a simple battlefield. It was a mosaic of identities, each valley different, each leader unique, and each alliance temporary. Surviving wasn't just about weapons, it was about reading people, sensing danger, trusting instincts, and understanding silence. Some soldiers formed genuine friendships with Afghan villagers who saw hope in cooperation. Others faced betrayal from individuals they had trusted. Some witnessed humanitarian efforts succeed, bringing small sparks of stability. Others watched projects fail because of corruption, mismanagement, or lack of local buy-in. And perhaps the greatest lesson these soldiers tried to share but the world ignored was that Afghanistan could not be reshaped quickly. These forgotten soldiers did not seek recognition. They sought clarity about why they were there, what they were achieving. The reality is that what they faced wasn't the simplified version the world was shown. They faced the raw, unfiltered truth of a country shaped by decades of conflict, survival, and mistrust of outsiders. And through their experience, we understand that Afghanistan's early war years were not just military operations. They were a complex test of human resilience, cultural understanding, and geopolitical pressure, all weighing on the shoulders of men who were quickly forgotten. If you want more deep, uncovered truths from the early years of the Afghan War, make sure you visit the channel for the next video.